It was pretty evident early in the day that Robert and I kind of got together and talked about how the afternoon might unfold.
They had been tracking it ever since it was rolling through, all the way out west.
And they said that there was severe weather going on. Get in the live truck and head on out.
I was actually anchoring that night as a sports anchor. I don't really know, I'm not really that worried about kind of stuff like that.
It wasn't until about 10 p.m. that night that those first tornado warnings kind of started to fire across the area. As we have a line of thunderstorms headed our way.
Once we got into the warning, all hell broke loose.
We know that this thunderstorm has already produced a tornado.
I do remember taking my kids down to the basement a couple of times.
Get on the road and just start driving. We're not going to do sports tonight.
So I get out to Millbury, and we were just kind of getting whatever shots we could from the parking lot at that time. All of a sudden, it just kind of got real quiet. It was really bizarre. Then it just got incredibly loud.
Multiple indications of rotation in there, that vortex signature, and it is right over the Millbury area.
Yeah.
The feeling of hearing those confirmed tornadoes on the ground and knowing that we were on air, constantly on air, giving an update to where these tornadoes were tracking, and then getting the reports in that communities were being impacted and devastated and homes were being leveled, to be honest, sent a shiver down our spine.
As I came up over the hill on 795, the first thing I saw on my left was what used to be the police station. That, I think, was the moment where everything hit me. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is really bad. And that's when I got up to Lake High School and realized just how bad everything was.
The first thing I noticed when I get off, right there's Lake High School, and I double take.
Their police department gone, their high school gone. These people are going to be feeling this for a long time.
We started driving around, and there wasn't a road that you really could cross without there being power lines and pieces of rooftops and just all sorts of debris.
When the sun came up and you actually saw the extent of the damage, it was pretty overwhelming, especially knowing that the loss of life was extremely possible. It wasn't just, okay, go to one place. It was, it was all over. It was north, south, east, and west of here.
Once first light broke, I just started walking down Main Street of Millbury, and it was a total war zone. There was a lost dog just kind of looking for his family. It was just really sad. You don't really know how to prepare for it.
First stop we went to, huge oak tree, had to have been 100, 150 years old, just toppled over this home. It's surreal.
Being by this one farm field, and right on the other side of the farm field were all the houses along Main Street that were blown away, but yet standing by this one house where I was speaking to the couple that said the tornado had passed by their house, and they looked out the window and saw the tornado passing by, but yet their house was not scratched, but yet all their neighbors were blown away, and they were kind of left wondering, why us and not them? Why were we spared and not them? And that's the thing about the tornadoes.
It wasn't until the next day that I actually arrived in downtown Millbury, and I saw what was a neighborhood the day before. And we've seen that on TV before. We see it on TV so often. When you see it in person, it's that same feeling, multiplied by about 100. You just, when it's surrounding you, 360 degrees all around you, and you're in the midst of that, and you know that it's affected people that you know, and that you have friends of friends that are in that area, it really certainly hits home.
We went further into Fulton County. It wasn't just one house, but the entire street. All the homes were wiped out. And one house that really got to me, there was this family. The little girl, the teenager, she had friends over for a sleepover that night. And one of the little girls in that sleepover was there. While some of the friends ran to the first floor bathroom and they hid right there in the bathtub, she was one of the last ones. She gripped on to the railing of that stairwell, and the winds picked her up and dropped her back down on that stairwell. And she survived. The stories that you hear from that were just amazing and will be with me.
I remember sitting on the desk, and this is when I knew that we really had a serious situation on our hands. We heard the report from Jordan Strack and the police chief saying, we've got people killed in this storm.
When I, that night, went up to one of the police officers and I said, you know, we're hearing reports that there are a couple people dead. Can you confirm that? He said, yeah, I know at least 3 right now. And as a sports guy, that is something that I've never had to encounter. So when I had to go on the air that night and actually report that, that was one of the toughest things I've ever had to do. The fact that there was an overturned car 50 yards from me, not even, with people in it, and that to me was one of the most surreal moments, I think, of my life.
It was an unbelievable feeling, just undescribable. The sadness that went out to, you know, obviously those families.
We happened to come across a family that was digging through the rubble, and they had already dug out 3 of the people that lived in that house, and they were looking for the father who was missing. And that was like my first real glimpse of how severe this really was, because nobody was able to find this man.
You never get used to seeing people lose their homes, lose family members. Out in the field, you really do see that pain and the heartache and people coming out of what's left of their homes, or perhaps a shelter where they've gone for safety. They come out and they're like, oh my goodness, what do I do now? And you saw that, unfortunately, over and over and over again.
I was covering the governor that day when he went to tour the devastation, and the uncle of the man who was killed.
Governor, may I have a word, please?
He was the one who was left cleaning up and picking up the pieces, and he called the governor on over.
I didn't lose a home, it was my nephew's home. He lost his wife and his son.
My photographer did get some candid shots when he didn't realize anyone was looking, and you saw that, you know, every once in a while it did hit, and realized his family was gone. You just really can't put yourself in his shoes. But until you've really gone through it, you really don't know.
The other thing that I've noticed when we have these types of storms, these types of massive incidents, is that the community knows when to come together.
That amount of generosity to happen so quickly, it was almost instantaneous.
It was a great feeling to see that at least people were willing to drop whatever they had planned.
To see the community come together the way they did, it was pretty special.
Whether it's tornadoes or a flood, people from all over rally around each other. Neighbors will help neighbors in any situation, and that always gets reaffirmed when things like this happen.
You don't get stories like that very often.
They all knew they're putting their differences aside, and they said, you know what, if we're going to stand up, we're going to stand up together. And that's exactly what they did.
I certainly will remember it forever.